Following this session, we're going to be rolling into the general membership meeting, so we're going to ask everyone to head out to the foyer or go visit with the exhibitors so we can get this area set up. We're going to have the general membership meeting in here with lunch served for those that are going to be present for that. So we encourage you all to come to hear the update with the association and AAAE. This session, if you are new or would like to know how to get involved with SWAAAE, this session will provide you with information you need. Hear from the chapter's first vice president, a chapter board member, and a AAAE board member, and a former student who is now an executive member on how they got involved and benefited personally and professionally. And so from that, I will turn it over.
All right, good afternoon. My name is Desiree Davis. Can you hear me? No. Do I have to hold it? Okay. Sorry. Okay, well, good afternoon. My name is Desiree Davis. I am the president of the AAAE student chapter at California State University. I am honored today to be here as a student moderator in behalf of how to get involved in the chapter. Today's speakers are Jennifer Maples. She is the Aviation Superintendent with the City of Phoenix Aviation Department. Alongside her is Sean Moran, the Assistant Airport Manager at Livermore Airport. Following, Dean Schultz, the Executive Vice President and COO of Reno-Tahoe Airport Authority. And finally, Scotty Malta, the Airport Manager at Castle Airport. I, along with the speakers, have developed a few questions since this is a 30-minute session. And so we'll begin with, how did you get involved? How did you get started in the chapter?
Really? Okay. I'll make this short so I can hopefully save my voice. I actually began as an intern at Sky Harbor in 1996, and we were hosting this the summer conference in '97. So I basically jumped in with both feet. So it was good timing, and I'd stay involved with committees. And I guess I would say my true engagement in the chapter actually happened about 10 years later, when I was after I got accredited, and I was really able to participate more at a higher level. So it's kind of two entrances. One was kind of good timing and got involved in a conference, but then the second time was getting accredited and kind of spurring me to be more engaged in the industry.
I kind of liken it to being a lost puppy who showed up. SWAAAE fed me, and then I kept coming back every year, and they kept opening the door. I started out as a student at California State Los Angeles, so a nod to the students from Cal State LA that are here today. I do recognize that it is a very big commitment on your part to take time out of your school and your week to come and join us. I got involved in, I believe it was 2011, the summer conference at Reno-Tahoe International Airport, and I was immediately hooked by seeing the engagement that all of my future peers were enjoying discussing on issues that are affecting the industry, collaborating on how best to solve problems that ultimately help our customer, the traveling public, and the economy. And I knew right then and there I picked the right degree, I picked the right field, and this was a family that I wanted to see myself in and continue. And I've stayed involved ever since because I'm learning constantly every time that I come to these conferences. And it's always an inspiration to see the development that's happening professionally and personally with my peers in this chapter. So that's how I got involved.
So they actually asked me to sit on this because I'm probably the bad example or the what not to do here. So I've been with the airport for 20-some years, and we've hosted several SWAAAE events over those years. So I had several opportunities to get more engaged, and in hindsight, I wish I had, but I hadn't. And so I'm kind of a relatively new person myself to being more engaged with SWAAAE. I've spoken occasionally when invited and those kinds of things, but I never really got deeply involved in it, and I truly regret that. So especially for the young folks in the room, don't live with regrets. Get involved early and get involved now. But to somewhat to Sean's point, you know, and the reason I regret it mostly is because this is such like a family here. I mean, I've had the opportunity to participate more on the national level, and that's great. It's a big family, but this is a much more intimate family, and you can develop deeper relationships with folks here. So don't be me.
Well, I came here to the chapter in 2003 for my very first SWAAAE conference, and I came here from a different chapter, a chapter where, no kidding, I couldn't get people to even hardly chat with me. I felt like the kid that needed a pork chop hung around his neck to get the dog to play with him. And when I came here, the little poopy, yes. When I got here, I noticed on the agenda that there was a board meeting, and there was a little note that said, members welcome. So I wandered into the board meeting. I was the only person that was not on the board, sat in the back of the room. And before long, I was incredibly warmly welcomed by the other SWAAAE directors, invited to sit at the table, gave me breakfast. Can you imagine all that? And literally, I was hooked. Before I walked out of that room that day, Leander Hari, who was then the director of the Livermore Airport, invited me to sit on the credentials committee with him. I mean, I'm the first time here. From there, my world just kind of spiraled through the what we have available to you here in the chapter. I wound up being elected to be a director in Northern California. Shortly after that, I was appointed to fill an unexpired term as the AAAE representative for SWAAAE, and then eventually elected president. So the point of all that was the warmth and fellowship within this chapter literally enfolded me, as you've heard, and drew me in, and just been great since then.
All right, thank you. So I feel like you touched on the second question, but it was what keeps you involved in the chapter? Other than the conferences, it's the warm people, but in addition.
Well, since it's here, I'll start and send it back that way. So officially, what keeps me involved in coming back is being on the board, number one, and number two, the conference content is amazing. And I can sell both of those to my county that allows me to come back. But personally, SWAAAE, as Dean mentioned, is just like a family. I mean, many people in here are closer to me than many of the family members I have. It's that whole pork chop thing again. So having said that, you know, along the way, I have been on nearly every conference committee since being able to join those. I actually chaired the Monterey 50th. Think of that, we're 59 this year. And one of the things that's a real joy for me is a feeling of giving back. And what I mean by that is broadening horizons, increasing people's knowledge in careers where I'm able to do that. You know, I may not be able to give someone a job at my airport, but I've been able to make connections for people. I find myself to be a facilitator and a mentor. And one of the things that, again, just warms my heart is when people that I've had even just the briefest conversation, like Sean and Welton, and a guy who later, no kidding, after spending about 40 minutes on a balcony here after the final budget, or our final banquet, a guy named Neil Kumar, who a few years later I found to be sitting across the table from me at the FAA as my planner, if you can imagine that. So seeing people progress through our industry after having had a few conversations with them just truly gives me that joy, and that's one of the reasons I come back.
Wow. I should probably just skip right over. That was amazing. So,
I don't know where to begin on that.
I was going to say exactly the same thing. But I mean, think of all the brain power in this room. I mean, you know, and you should always strive to be a lifelong learner, and there is no better place to learn than from the people in this group. You've heard it presentation after presentation, you know, the challenges people deal with, and so it's a resource that you should take advantage of, and that's what keeps me coming back.
It's the ability to continue to stay involved in this chapter well beyond just your username and your login to the website and a directory of individuals that you can call on or email now and then. It's the ability to serve on committees and stay involved continuously. After I started attending some of these conferences, I got involved on the academic portion for the committee. I was very fortunate to be taken under the wing by Jessica Bryan with CNS Companies when she was the chair of the academic involvement program for the Monterey Conference, and I was able to learn from her and take over that program to continue to develop and help give back to our students. And I take that as an opportunity to tell our academic members, get involved within the committees. It's an excellent way to stay current and stay connected to the peers that you are meeting here at this conference, and it gives you the ability to ultimately give back to those that that'll be coming after you and progressing in their careers.
So I guess I'm the only one who followed the directions and only answered the first question with how I got started. So is that what's going on here? I'm going that route. Well, no, because everyone said family after me, and I didn't say that, so now I feel like, well, you know, I'm kind of. So I had a better way of putting it, in my opinion. Jet fuel is thicker than blood. That's my motto. So, no, everything they said, it's like, okay, we're going to just kind of repeat each other's sentiments because there's a very common theme here for why we keep coming back. We're staying plugged into the issues. We're staying current. We're staying aware. And the one thing we haven't mentioned is we're taking it back to our airports. So our airports are actually benefiting from what we learn here, both in the technical aspects, but as well as in our leadership opportunities and our abilities to learn and engage in that realm. So it's a great opportunity to continue to, like I said, just stay engaged. But also, personally, I like was already mentioned, the mentoring and the opportunity to see the success of others and maybe to contribute to that, to pay it forward. That's a huge factor here. I think a lot of the folks have been around here a while, but even those, the late bloomers like Dean, have a lot to offer from their experience, and it's a very gratifying thing. And just helping others to grow and succeed in the industry is its own reward.
Thank you, Jennifer. So the last question that we comprised was what would you give the advice to new members and or students to get involved and to stay involved in this chapter?
Okay, so since I got the mic, get plugged in. Get plugged in. There are a lot of opportunities to get engaged. Not everything is the conferences. We have committees that are active throughout the year. They're on the website, but you can talk to any one of us and we can tell you what opportunities are available. The other thing is invest in yourself. If you haven't already gotten your CM, I highly recommend it. Anyone can get a CM. It's not just airport folks. There are several corporate folks who have their CM and have been grateful or glad that they got it because it gave them a depth of understanding of what airports do. But if you're on the airport side, get accredited, take that next step. It sets you apart. It's an investment in yourself. So invest in yourself and invest in others. And if you do both those things, you will be successful. And I guess the last thing I would say is that kind of once you learn something, something about how important our industry is and how impactful it is. You can't really unlearn it. You learn these things at these conferences and from each other, and it becomes a part of you. And I just say welcome that, embrace that, and be a part of that. So get plugged in.
Again, committees. You'll find here right after our session when we have our general membership lunch, you're going to hear from members that'll be up here talking about their committees that they chair, the committees that they're involved in. So if you're in the room wondering, okay, I want to get involved, what are the committees? Next, this lunch is going to be an excellent opportunity for you to get involved. I'll plug for the students for the academic program for the conference here. We've noticed that it's becoming increasingly more successful year after year, and it's kind of a big thing to do just with one person. So I want to challenge or invite one of our academic members to come partner with me and help continue to develop a very engaging and collaborative academic program for our future students that are coming in. And then I'd also just like to plug that one of the reasons why I keep coming back to the conferences, because we have a really good poet laureate as well, who makes great poems, and then also do get your CMs, get your accreditation, and for the students, get that while you're in school. Your brain's already plugged into it. Because if you do it like me and you wait 3 to 4 years after you get out of college, no, it's not going to work. It takes a long time.
Okay, so I'm not going to repeat committees, obviously, is a good way, but I was going to share a dirty little secret that you might try, but and I'll caution, be careful, because I'm typically the guy in our organization that has to say no to things when it's budget time, because there's a balancing act always, and travel tends to be the easiest thing to remove because it's non-essential. But you know, if you're involved in the committees, or if you're involved in the planning committee for the conferences, you know, you might suggest you might be able to speak, you know, and on a panel or that, and then if you take that back to your boss and say, you know, gee, I've been invited to speak, and it'd be really helpful, and I could learn all these things. You can kind of coerce somebody into saying yes when they will typically say no, and I don't abuse that. I mean, but it's a way, it's a little bit of a workaround, but and it helps you keep you engaged. But absolutely, join the committees, chair a committee, and there's the webinar connection that you can participate in the conferences if you can't, you know, get that bad guy to give you travel funds to come to it. But just keep staying engaged, and you know, at some point you'll be the person making the decisions, and you can approve your own travel budget.
Is Reno live streaming right now?
Hope not. Kim, you did not hear me say that.
So I'm not going to be redundant and say the same things my colleagues did in the beginning, because that was the beginning part of my notes here. But let me give you a quick disclaimer. You'll notice I'm kind of dressed down for a panel, unlike Dean here. But you know, uniquely, and this is what I wear when I go to AAAE board meetings, because I tell them I'm wearing my SWAAAE colors. So the point of that is to be proud of the organization that we represent and be involved in there. But I also want to suggest to you to be available. Now, 41 years ago tomorrow, I walked onto Lackland Air Force Base as a 17-year-old kid to go to Air Force basic training. On the way to the bus, my father gave me 2 pieces of advice. First, put your wallet in your front pocket when you're in big groups, because it's harder to steal. And second, don't volunteer for anything. Within 2 hours of being at basic training, my TI was standing in front of us and said, "I need a volunteer." Oh, what? And my hand went straight up. It's like, you got to be kidding me. But that has been kind of the way I operate. I have been available and willing to do most anything that I can. And truly that has helped me stay plugged in all through our industry. And I recommend that you be available and willing to do that. Also, while you're here and other conferences, you get an amazing networking tool. If you didn't realize it, you have an attendee list. And the attendee list has contact information from everybody who is registered for the conference. Now, if you're like me, I don't remember more than the last 5 things. It used to be 7, but the last 5 things I hear. And so when I talk to somebody, it's very likely I'm going to forget their name or possibly the conversation that we had. But I will often take this list jot a note by somebody, or like I want to talk to this person again, and I have it right in front of me when I get back to my office and I can relax a little bit. So this is a great mining tool for information and networking. And lastly, I highly recommend, and this goes for the students as well as others who are perhaps new in the industry, or maybe you've been in the industry for a long time, but find a mentor. Let me call it a mentor or friend or a go-to person. In my career here in the Southwest chapter, I've had several, and they fill different parts of the needs that I've had, both professionally as far as how to get involved, various pieces of information about runway something or another. The point is, there's a lot of talent in the room here, and I'm pretty sure that there's nobody in this room that if you walked up to and said, hey, can I call you from time to time and ask questions? I'm sure no one's going to say no. So please do that. Get plugged in with somebody that you're willing to talk to and that's willing to talk with you, and ask questions from time to time. But by all means, get involved, get plugged in.
All right, well, thank you all so much. I'd like to open the floor for any questions or comments that the audience has. Students?
Hi, Nicole Hansen, also a Cal State student. So my question for the board is, how do you think your careers would have progressed had you not gotten involved with the organization?
I'm sorry, I didn't hear that. How do you think your careers would have progressed had you not gotten involved with Wow.
Well, I can certainly attest that it is because of a Monterey conference that I am at the position that I am now, both through professionally, through education and learning, but as well as networking on a personal level. They say that this is a very small industry. I recall two of the people up here were on a panel about being involved with SWAAAE, how SWAAAE was a family. Jennifer and Scott Malta, with an individual named Brendan O'Reilly, who used to be the #2 at the Hayward Executive Airport. Being a Bay Area kid, being born and raised in Concord, I immediately made my way up and introduced myself to Brendan. Told him I'd like to take a tour of his airport the next time I was up, and we kept that relationship. And at the time, I was working at Ventura County Department of Airports. Went up there, toured his airport. Realized that there was going to be an opportunity, coming up pretty soon for an opening. It'd be an opportunity to move back home, be back with my family, and so I took that. And through having that job, and then networking with individuals at Moneta San Jose International, being just down the road. Hi, Rosemary. Hi, Jody. I progressed as a duty manager over there, and then my old boss at Hayward Executive, Dave Dakota. Hi, boss. I'm here. He's live streaming, making sure I'm behaving. Went over to Livermore as the #1 and invited me to apply and interview to join him again as the assistant manager at Livermore Airport. So it's moments like that where you kind of stop. You stop right at the door and you think, this is really happening. It's through a simple handshake and an interaction with somebody at a conference or at an industry event, and you have no clue as to how impactful, directly or indirectly, that can happen and be placed upon your life and experience years down the road.
I'd like to just bring a different perspective. I joined the association in 1983. I've been attending this conference since 1984. Airport management, retired out of it in 2013. I entered the world of consulting, and one of the reasons I did that was a great opportunity, and it's been an excellent experience for me, is giving back to the association and to the people that I've pretty much grew up with in this organization, and trying to help the newcomers and those that are engaged with my knowledge base, whatever that might be, to help them become better, more successful. It's very rewarding. It's rewarding for me to come back year after year because this is the group I love. This is the organization. This is the industry that I love. And I love giving back to it. And so stay engaged even when you get to the other side of your career. it's well worth it.
Sorry, there's a question over there.
Hi, I'm Luis. I have a question for the whole panel about how do we get future students to come who have no interest in aviation and don't really know what to do in the career, because I've seen a lot of students at our department who don't really have a direction. How do we get them motivated to come out here and gather an interest like we all do?
You know, just a thought. We often hear that if you go to a restaurant and hate the restaurant, you're going to tell 10 people you hated the restaurant. But very often do we tell 10 people that we love the restaurant. So my thought is, if you've enjoyed what you see here and you kind of get the feel and the vibe of this organization, tell 10 students. Tell them they missed out. If they can do anything at all to get to the conference. I mean, you guys are sharing 5 to a room. You share travel expenses, and we've got scholarships that are very very good for you guys. I would highly recommend that you tell them how important it was to have been here, and encourage them the best you can to come. I mean, this is such a great organization to be part of.
I would also say never pass up an opportunity to talk to folks. And we have a program called Pathways to Aviation that's part of the Reno Air Race. And they have classes and workshops for students, and I gladly go and talk to those folks. But I mean, so never pass up an opportunity when you're talking to somebody to get out there and talk with them. But I'd also flip the question around to you. What from your perspective would be the best way to go about attracting folks like you, since you've experienced it more closely than we have?
You know, from my perspective, I come to this conference because it's the best AAAE conference that I've ever been to, including national conferences. My boss says, Ron, why are you going to this Monterey thing? And I tell her, you know, I don't really need the class sessions. I come to see my friends, even Carl, who was a Navy guy, and I come to interact with my peers to ask them, how do you handle this question? How did you handle unleaded fuel sales at your airport? Because that's a burning issue for us in San Diego. So I don't need to come to be taught anything. I come to learn from my peers, which is the opposite end of how do we get more students here, how do we get more old guys here.
For the students and also for the airports in here, one of the ways that I try to encourage other folks, especially in the state of Arizona, we've got great university systems that have different programs. And so what I put the challenge out is there's always projects that you need done at your airport, and for you to get creative, innovative, really outside the box thinking a lot of the times is to see which students need a capstone project, or if they need some credit hours or volunteer hours or just the exposure to get them to come in and evaluate anything from your marketing and public relations. And then for me, for example, I brought in a University of Arizona team that's going to do the optimization for our baggage belt. And so just to get them there and exposed, and then also then see if you can turn their ideas and their recommendations into actual projects. And these aren't even aviation students, they're systems engineering students, and I just want them to get exposed to the different consultants. So that's where the consultant play comes in too. So you get student involvement, leadership in the industry, and then you bring the consultant in based on what the subject matter expertise is. And then that way you got everybody talking to each other, and then the students are learning how to communicate, learning some of those soft skills, and then also then you get to tell them, how did you meet all these people? And so a lot of the times I've met those people through these different conferences in the state and the region, and then also nationally. So the students here, this is just the beginning. Go back, you'll see there's things in the state, and there's tons of things nationally in which you can get involved in between AAAE and ACI. So this is just the beginning. And even the seasoned professionals, this is just the beginning. You think that this is it. You also need to think, how much more can you do for yourself? And then not just having resources, but being resourceful. So we need to get out of saying how many resources we have and start thinking about how resourceful you can be.
For the students, we are an airports organization, but if you look at our industry, there are thousands and thousands of jobs in our industry that are not working for the airport. So as a student coming out of college, what's the first thing you want, or at least your parents want you to get the first thing when you get out of college? A job. And how are you going to find out about those jobs? Come in and network with people like this.
All right, well, thank you so much for attending this session, and thank you for the speakers for giving your opinions, your insights. As a student, I greatly appreciate your warmth and your welcome, your knowledge, and we'll keep attending. Thank you.
All right, we're wrapping up this session. We're going to be going into our general membership meeting, so we're going to ask everyone to go out in the foyer or spend time with the exhibitors. The one comment we have, when you registered, if you had a special meal card, go ahead and make sure you bring that with you so that way you can have your special meal, whether it's fish or vegetarian.